the Ministry of Public Service and Human Capital, the Ministry of Gender, Culture, Arts and Heritage. These are the names that are being forwarded to the National Assembly for considerations and approvals. And the Speaker of the National Assembly, Honorable Dr. Moses Wetangula, has walked into the plenary for today's session that is expected to commence shortly. Do listen in. This is the Parliamentary Broadcast Unit in collaborations with KBC.
Waheshimiwa, tuombe. Ewe Mwenyezi Mungu, ambaye kwa hekima na wema wako umetoa nyadhifa za viongozi na mabunge kwa ustawi wa jamii na utawala wa haki wa wanadamu, tukusihi utazame kwa neema nyingi sisi watumishi wako ambao wameridhika kutuita ili tutekeleze shughuli muhimu za jamhuri yetu. Tunakuomba uteremshie baraka zako sisi tuliokutanika hapa, na utujalie tuyatende na kufikiria mambo yote yatakayofikishwa mbele yetu kwa njia ya haki na uaminifu, ili tukufu na sifa zako ziendelezwe, na ili kustawisha amani, ufanisi na heri ya nchi yetu na wale ambao haja zao umezikabidhi mikononi mwetu. Amen. Sergeants, ring the bell. Yes.
And having not achieved a quorum pursuant to Standing Order 34,
Clerk.
Order number 1, administration of oath. Order number 2, communication from the chair.
Thank you. Honorable Maklap, take your seat. Shinali, take your seat. Honorable members, I have a communication on the appointment of members to a mediation committee on the National Rating Bill 2022. Honorable members, you recall that on Wednesday, 12th June 2024, the House rejected Senate's amendment to the National Rating Bill, National Assembly Bill number 55 of 2022. Consequently, the said bill was referred to a mediation committee in accordance with Article 112 of the Constitution and Standing Order 149. Honorable members, Article 113 of the Constitution requires that whenever a bill is referred to a mediation committee, the speakers of the Houses of Parliament appoint an equal number of members of each house to attempt to develop a version of the bill that the houses will pass. In this regard, honorable members, having consulted with the leader of the majority party and the leader of the minority party, I've appointed the following members to represent the National Assembly in the Mediation Committee: Honorable Joash Nyamoko MP, Honorable Jen Kihara MP, Honorable Joses Lelmengit MP, Honorable Joseph Gitari MP, Honorable Matthias Robi MP, Honorable Paul Katana MP, Honorable Engineer Thaddeus Nzambi MP, Honorable Zamzam Mohammed MP, and Honorable Fatuma Joho MP. Honorable members, we shall await the appointment of senators to the Mediation Committee for the committee to be fully constituted for purposes of commencing the mediation process. Once I receive a message from the Senate to that effect, I'll convey the same to the House. Thereafter, the Mediation Committee will embark on an attempt to develop a mediation version of the bill in accordance with Article 113 of the Constitution. The House is accordingly guided. I thank you. Next order.
Order number 3, messages. Order number 4, petitions. Order number 5, papers.
Majority Leader. Majority Leader. Chairperson, Public Debt and Privatization.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I beg to lay the following paper on the table of the House. Today, Wednesday, 24th July 2024, report of the Public Debt and Privatization Committee on its consideration of the Consolidated Fund Services for the Supplementary Estimates 1 Financial Year 24-25. I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Majority Leader. Osoro, do you have any brief for the Majority Leader in laying papers? We'll come back to that. Call the next order.
Order number 6, notices of motion.
Shuria.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I beg to give notice of the following motion, that this House adopts the report of the Public Debt and Privatization Committee on its consideration of the Consolidated Fund Services for the Supplementary Estimates 1 Financial Year 24-25, laid on the table of the House on Wednesday, 24th July 2024. I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
As we wait for the Majority Leader, go to the next order. Soro, you have the papers? Go ahead.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I beg to lay the following papers on the table of the House. Today, Wednesday, for
Statements.
Member for Konoin, Brighton Yegon. Brighton Yegon. Brighton Yegon. Next, member for Kisii County, Doris Donya.
Oh, I need to make a request for bundles, which are non-renewable upon expiration. Further, the internet service provider benefits from the customers who have rightfully purchased data, yet there is neither accountability to the customer nor any compensation for the huge financial losses incurred during the outages. Honorable Speaker, it is against this background that I seek statement from the Chairperson of Departmental Committee on Communication, Information and Innovation on the following. The measures that are in place to ensure the internet service providers such as Safaricom, Telcom and Airtel compensate their customers adequately during prolonged internet outages. Clarify on the implementation of broadband compensations and rebates by internet service providers to their customers in the event of service disruptions. And finally, outline steps being taken by the Ministry of Innovation, Communication and Digital Economy to enhance the accountability of it and promote the rights of customers, especially in light to the increasing dependence on internet services. I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Next, Irene Mayaka, nominated member.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I wish to request for us.
Hold on. I will refer the statement by Doris to the Chairman of Communication, Information and Innovation Committee. Who is that? KJ? Can you bring the response in 2 weeks?
Mr. Speaker, it's a very serious issue that is raised by the county MP for Kisii, and for sure the committee will apply itself, and in 2 weeks we can assure this House that we shall be having a report for this statement. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
2 weeks. Doris, 2 weeks. Irene Mayaka. Go back, I'll call you. Yes.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I wish to request for a statement regarding the position of the Kenya National Under-17 football team. Honorable Speaker, pursuant to the provisions of Standing Order 44-2C, I rise to request for a statement from the Chairperson of the Departmental Committee of Sports and Culture regarding the 8 Kenyan Under-17 women's national team players who are scheduled to travel to the Dominican Republic to represent the country at the Under-17 Women's World Cup in November. Honorable Speaker, this prestigious event is an exceptional opportunity for these talented young women to showcase their skills on a global stage and bring honor to the country. Additionally, this exposure enhances the competence-based curriculum, which seeks to recognize the diverse talents and abilities of the learners. Honorable Speaker, with this in mind, it is unfortunate to note that the Kenya players under 17 are yet to report.
Order, honorable members, order. Order, Ngeleche, take your seat. That excitement should be exhibited out there. Order. Allow the member to prosecute her statement.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for that. Honorable Speaker, with this in mind, it is unfortunate to note that the Kenyan players under 17 are yet to report in camp, whereas the teams from other qualifying nations, including Zambia and Nigeria, are already at camp. Furthermore, it is important to note the timing of this event coincides with the Kenya Certificate of Secondary Education. This poses a significant challenge for our players. Honorable Speaker, it is crucial and imperative that we support these young and ambitious players in their dual pursuits of academic excellence and sporting success. Just like the renowned player Yamal, who played in the Euro Cup, he had finished his final exams 3 days before the tournament kickoff, carrying his books and attending online classes while in Germany. Our own students are capable of meticulously following this great example. Honorable Speaker, it is therefore against this background that I seek a statement from the Chairperson of the Departmental Committee on Sports and Culture on the following. Number 1, plans that the Ministry of Sports, Arts and Culture, in consultation with the Ministry of Education, has made or is making to ensure that the players have the opportunity to take their exams at a time that does not conflict with their participation in the World Cup? And number 2, the measures being taken by the Ministry of Sports, Art and Culture and other stakeholders, including FIFA, to ensure that the team goes back to camp for readiness and preparation. I thank you.
Thank you, Irene. Chairman, Sports and Culture. Wapi Dan Wanyama? Any member of the committee? Order. Any member of Sports and Culture? Clerk, you will communicate for him to bring a response in 2 weeks. Brighton Yegon.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Brighton, in the norms of Parliament, you first apologize for coming late, then you proceed to give your statement, because we have called you twice.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I apologize for coming late, and I requesting for a statement regarding the disappearance of Miss Frenda Chebngeno, a student at Catholic University of East Africa. Honorable Speaker, pursuant to provisions of Standing Order number 44 2C, I rise to request for a statement from the chairperson of Departmental Committee on Administration and Internal Security regarding the mysterious disappearance of Miss Frenda Chebngeno. Honorable Speaker, Ms. Chebngeno of identity number 3818438, a fourth-year student at Catholic University of East Africa, was reported missing at Ongatarongai Police Station under OB number 72281123. All such initiatives to trace her through the Directorate of Criminal Investigation have not been successful as at now. Honorable Speaker, the circumstances surrounding her disappearance are alarming, and our family, friends, and the academic community are deeply worried about the well-being. It is the duty of the government to make every effort to locate and ensure safety of our citizens, especially young students pursuing their education. The mysterious disappearance of Ms. Chebngeno without the trace continues to cause our family distress on our whereabouts and safety, as well as anxiety about our life. Honorable Speaker, it is against this background that I seek statement from the chairperson of Departmental Committee on Administration and Internal Security on the following matters. What is the status of investigation into the mysterious disappearance of Frenda Chebngeno, which was reported on Gatarangai polling station under OB number 72/28/11/23, and has the family of the missing student been informed of the circumstances surrounding her disappearance and whereabouts? What steps has the ministry taken to ensure that the missing student is expeditiously traced and reunited with her family? What security measures has the government taken to guarantee the safety of all students and school-going children in order to protect them from potential incidences of kidnapping and other forms of violence? I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Man, or Chairperson, Administration and Security. Tongoyo, is that your committee? When can you bring statement?
Maybe, Honorable Speaker, you need to guide, considering that this statement normally are signed by the CS, which we don't have a substantive one at the moment. But hopefully that the Parliament will be able to vet them.
Order, Tongoyo. There is a PS in that ministry. This is a disappearance of a student. It is not like any other statement that we have been requested.
Okay. So
I give you a week.
Okay.
To bring a response.
Well guided.
Yes. Yes, Honorable Oundo. Honorable Oundo, give him the mic.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Speaker, before we went for the recess, before the fires that happened on 25th, had requested a statement through the Department of Defense, the one from Mheshimiwa Tongoi, and we had agreed we will submit the statement when we resume sittings today, yesterday. I patiently sat and I didn't hear anything. And I hope, as you have directed him to bring the other one the next 1 week, could you also do for me a favor so that we also, in response to the same question, my question, so that I can also remit to the people of Funyula constituency to appreciate that the government is a government perpetuity, even if when there's no substantive yes, the State Department has not ceased operation. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Was it to defense or internal security?
No, it was internal security, sorry.
You had said defense. Okay, Tomboya,
it's internal security.
You attend to that as well. Yes, Mule.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, before we also went to recess, I requested a statement to the Committee of Transport regarding the bridge connecting Thika East constituency and Matungulu constituency, which was washed away during the floods. And up to now, Mr. Speaker, we have not gotten a response. Little work has been done, and I can assure you the connectivity between Kiambu County and Machakos County has been very impossible to both traders, school-going kids, and the public. So, Mr. Speaker, I would kindly request if the Chair of Transport has any response from the Minister of Transport, kindly to proceed and give us that communication to assure the people of Matungulu. As per now, I'm the acting minority leader.
I have no such communication. Where is Honorable GK of Ndia? Clerk, communicate to the chairman of Roads and Public Works. Response with. Now we have responses to statements. Member for Chairman, Administration and Internal Security. Are you ready?
Yes, I am, Speaker.
That is a statement sought by Doris Donya.
Yeah, Honorable Speaker, it's true I've got a response to the statement being asked by the Honorable Member Doris Donya, the member for Kisii County. And I want to, regarding the death of two persons, one, Lucas Nyangao Mirioki Ombui and Obure Makobe. Honorable Speaker, I want to state as follows. Honorable Speaker, the body of late Mr. Lucas Nyambao Mirioka Ombio was discovered at a roadside in Nyambioreke Market within Makeche Ward on 30th March 2024 at around 4 p.m. as per OB number 0230-0324 of Mageche Police Station. According to postmortem report from the Kisii Teaching and Referral Hospital, the deceased died a natural death, which was caused by anemia and hypoglycemia in respect of hepatosplenomegaly associated with a syncope. The second victim, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Obure Makebe, died at his home and not marketplace, as stated. The deceased fell ill at his home in Nyabiore Magecha Ward on 29th March and went to a private clinic referred to as Richcon within Nyabiore Market. He was complaining of abdominal pain and gastrics as per the police DCI Kanyanyanya statement recorded by a clinician, one Mr. Richard Osoro, and the mother to the deceased. The clinician had referred him to Kanyanyaba sub-county hospital for further treatment, but the deceased never went to the hospital. Instead, he stayed at home and died on that 1st March. And the body was then moved to Lenmek Hospital mortuary and the death was neither reported to the police nor a postmortem conducted. Honorable Speaker, so that is to say that, Honorable Speaker, that both deaths were due to natural causes, not as a result of insecurity, as it was stated by the Honorable Member. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Doris?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's a blatant lie that it was a natural death.
Lie.
They've just lied.
Order. Lie is not a parliamentary language.
They've not told the truth. They have given an opposite of what happened. That's it's not true.
Tongoyo, are you telling Parliament untruths?
Not at all, Mr. Speaker. It's according to the report that were given by our officers, and there was a post-mortem report. Maybe we can able to furnish the member. Yeah.
Doris, if you have any issues, when we resume having ministers coming to answer questions, you are at liberty to file a question to interrogate the minister if you are not satisfied. Okay. Next, Chairman, Transport and Infrastructure. Yes? You have the response? Go ahead.
On which one?
That is to Honorable Mishimbogo. Is she in the house? Honorable Mishimbogo, I received a letter from you seeking to be away yesterday and today. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. First, with regard to the question by Honorable Mule, we will be meeting the agency, the transport agency, the Ministry of Roads on this Thursday, and we'll be able to make a response next week on that question. Okay. With regard to Mishimboko's question, Honorable Speaker, on Thursday, 18th April 2024, the member for Likoni constituency, Honorable Mishimboko, MP, requested for a statement from the chairperson of Departmental Committee on Transport and Infrastructure regarding the commencement of Mombasa Gate Bridge construction project. Honorable Speaker, regarding the aforementioned statement, Honorable Mishimboko specifically requested for details regarding the following issues. Details on the loan agreement between the Japanese and the Kenyan government for the Mombasa Bridge construction project, and particularly the total funding provided and repayment terms. When the construction will commence, noting that there were timelines for the commencement by the year 2021 and the completion to be within 36 months. Third issue was a clarification on whether the Mombasa Gate Bridge project loan agreement was among the recently restructured midterm loans, and if so, provisions of details on the restructuring. Honorable Speaker, the committee has since received response from the Ministry of Roads and Transport, which I now wish to make. With regard on the loan agreement terms, the ministry submitted that the total cost of the constructing the bridge was approximately Japanese yen 180 billion, out of which Japanese yen 120 billion was to be paid by JICA through the loan, whereas was to be paid for by the GOK for counterpart funding. Further, the ministry submitted that the completion of the detailed design phase, the project cost was appraised to a total estimated cost of Japanese yen 284.4 billion, which comprises of 194.52 Japanese yen of eligible cost and Japanese yen 89.843 for counterpart funding. The implementing agency, KENHA, has, through the Ministry of Roads and Transport, sought for commitment of funding from the National Treasury regarding, one, a formal commitment from JICA on the release of the subsequent tranches of loans signed on 5th December 2019, and an appraisal of the loan from Japanese yen 120 to Japanese yen 194.53 billion to adequately cover for the eligible component of the project. Two, additional budget in the subsequent years to cover the counterpart funding amounting to Japanese yen 83.84 billion, with an immediate release of land acquisition funds amounting to Kenya shillings 19.4 billion. Provision of right-of-way, land acquisition and relocation of utilities as a prerequisite condition of contract that should be fulfilled prior to the commencement of the works. The ministry provided an assurance that a commitment of funding from the National Treasury was received on 19th January 2024. The GOK is therefore responsible for covering a counterpart funding portfolio totaling Japanese yen 83.843 billion, which includes payment for the following: 1. Land acquisition and compensation. 2. General administration expenses. 3. Taxes and duties. Honorable Speaker, with regard to the expected projected commencement date, the ministry submitted that the earliest possible commencement date for the construction of these works is projected to be October 2025. It is projected that the construction of the cable-stayed bridge will take 84 months, which is approximately 7 years. Further, the ministry submitted that a consultant has since commenced preparatory works which are necessary prior to the commencement of the construction works. These preparatory works include geotechnical investigation of the seabed for construction of cable-stayed bridge at Apaya 3, procurement of accredited checker, and establishment of the operations and maintenance entity and toll system are scheduled to be completed in January 2025, and thereafter tendering for the construction work will commence. Due to the complexity of the project, the ministry observed that it is projected that the tendering period will be approximately 10 months, which includes bidding, evaluation, the seeking of no objection from the co-financiers, contract award, and issuance of commencement for works. Honorable Speaker, on the issue relating to the clarification of whether the project was among the recently restructured midterm loans, the ministry submitted it was not among those restructured project loans. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Yes, have you finished? Mama Mishi?
Yeah, thank you, Honorable Speaker. And I want to appreciate the response which has been given by the chairperson of the relevant committee. But Honorable Speaker, can I maybe put a complementary question to get some substantiation, to get some clarity?
You can seek clarification on the statement given?
Yeah, because from the second response, you indicated that the possible commencement date for the construction is October 2025. How do you explain the discrepancy that the loan was first disbursed in 2020 and the project will begin in 2025? In addition, the loan term was 40 years with a grace period of 12 years from 2020, meaning the first repayment is in 2032. We are in 2024, and the commencement date for the project is October 2025. Can the ministry give a solid commitment that the project will begin in 2025? And how is the ministry planning to recover these loans since the project is off schedule? Are we going to have some challenges in terms of funding? Because now we are a bit late. The other one is, can the ministry tell us whether we have the 19.4 billion for land acquisition that has been budgeted for in the current financial year 2024-2025. Can you confirm that we have that funds? Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Yes, Kamingoi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It is imperative to note that while we discussed this with the Honorable Mishimboko, we actually agreed that the commencement, the earliest opportunity we have is 2025. What we put before the ministry is to make sure that the works are expedited, to make sure that they're completed within the 8-year window before the commencement of the works. Number two, Mr. Speaker, I think maybe in the next meeting we will respond on whether the National Treasury will approve the 19.2 billion, which is for land acquisition, with regard to the supplementary budget we have, the current one we are processing for her confirmation. Maybe we'll give that information the next meeting, maybe Thursday, for the purposes of confirming whether it is included within this supplementary budget one, which we are currently processing. Thank you.
Honorable Mishi, are you satisfied?
Honorable Speaker, I'm satisfied, but I also want to know who are the consultants on the ground so that key stakeholders like myself, representing the people of Likoni, can know them and understand what they are doing at the ground. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Yes, Komingoi.
Yeah, Mr. Speaker, let me assure the member that we can procure those details as soon as they are made available to the committee and submit to her for the purposes of proper engagement with the stakeholders and the leadership within the Mombasa County and specifically Likoni constituency. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Next, yourself again, Komingoi. Statement by Amina Munyazi. Are you ready?
Yes, Mr. Speaker. Honorable Speaker, on Tuesday, 30th April 2024, the member for Malindi constituency, Honorable Amina Munyazi, MP, requested for a statement from the chairperson of Departmental Committee on Transport and Infrastructure regarding the status of issuance of seafarers' identity document. Honorable Speaker, regarding the aforementioned statement, the Honorable Amina Munyazi specifically requested for details regarding the following issues. 1, status of the processing and issuance of seafarers' identity document. Number 2, the number of applications received by the Kenya Maritime Authority and the number of SID issued from 2022 to date. 3, the challenges that have hindered the processing of seafarers' identity document. 4 is the plans that have been put in place to ensure that processing of seafarers' identity documents is fast-tracked. Honorable Speaker, the committee has since received response from the Ministry of Mining, Blue Economy and Maritime Affairs, which I wish to now make. With regard to the status of the processing of and issuance of seafarers' identity documents, the ministry submitted that the State Department for Shipping and Maritime Affairs, in collaboration with the Kenya Maritime Authority, KMA, has been diligently engaged and advancing the implementation of the SID issuance process. However, the ministry acknowledged setbacks in the rollout of the documents since it was fairly new and not many countries had implemented and issued the SID. The ministry submitted that their efforts are concentrated on expediting the processing and issuance of SIDs to eligible seafarers. Further, the ministry submitted that the process is at the procurement stage, with the Kenya Maritime Authority being the procuring entity. The ministry stated that the procurement of SID was facing challenges due to the unresponsive tenders with the initial...
Order. Honorable Joho, this is not a public baraza. Go on, Komingoi.
Mr. Speaker, the ministry stated that the procurement of SIDs was facing challenges due to the unresponsive tenders, with the initial phase of tendering having been closed due to the following reasons: concerns over the tendering pricing, which exceeded market rates; impracticality of the proposed implementation period, which would have resulted in issuance of the documents in the year 2025. The ministry therefore submitted that the tender has to be reissued, and the process was on the second phase of tender process with pre-qualified suppliers identified. The document was slated to be dispatched to the bidders before May 20th, 2024. Honorable Speaker, with regard to the number of applications received by the Kenya Maritime Authority and the number of SIDs issued from 2022 to date, the ministry submitted that KMA has not received any application for SID, although acknowledged that there is a huge demand from seafarers of this document to be issued. Number 5, further, the ministry submitted that plans were underway to extend the SID issuance to all eligible seafarers once the processing and issuance procedures are finalized. The ministry is therefore focused on completing the necessary groundwork to facilitate a smooth and efficient rollout process, enabling eligible seafarers to obtain their SID without undue delay once the process is finalized. Honorable Speaker, on the issue regarding challenges that have hindered the processing of seafarers' identity documents, the ministry submitted that the implementation of the identity document presents unique challenges due to its stringent security requirements set by the international regulatory bodies such as the International Labour Organization, ILO, International Maritime Organization, IMO, the International Civil Aviation Organization, ICAO. These regulations necessitate attention to detail to ensure compliance. The ministry observed that many countries have been quick to issue the SID and got it wrong, resulting in wastage of resources, a path we are trying to avoid. They are trying to avoid. Honorable Speaker, regarding the plans that have been put in place to ensure that processing of seafarers' identity documents is fast-tracked, the ministry submitted that the following measures have been instituted. 1, engaging in consultative meetings with ILO, conducting market surveys, and reviewing the implementation strategies adopted by the few countries that have successfully implemented the SID. This has provided insights and best practice informing the ministry implementation process. Number 2, Mr. Speaker, is streamlining the procedures to enhance efficiency and reduce processing time by optimizing workflows and eliminating unnecessary bureaucratic hurdles, aiming to expedite the issuance of SIDs without compromising on security standards. Number 3 is collaborating closely with the relevant stakeholders, including the Ministry of Immigration, to address technical challenges and enhance overall process efficiency. This collaborative effort ensures that all pertinent issues are addressed comprehensively, fostering a conducive environment for the swift SID processing. 4 is implementing a robust system of continuous monitoring and evaluation of the SID issuance process. This enables identification of any potential obstacles and bottlenecks, prompting and allowing for timely intervention and resolution. The ministry submitted that targeted timelines for the issuance of SIDs is to be June 2024. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Honorable Abina, are you satisfied?
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I have no further questions.
Thank you. Next, statement request by Honorable Rael Kasiwai. Komingoi again.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Honorable Speaker, on Thursday, 2nd May 2024, the member for West Pokot County, the Honorable Rael Kasiwai, MP, requested for a statement from the chairperson of Departmental Committee on Transport and Infrastructure regarding the state of Kapenguria, Lodwar Road. In the statement, Honorable Kasiwai sought to establish 1, the immediate measures the Ministry of Road and Transport is putting in place to rehabilitate Kapenguria Lodwar Road, and 2, the long-term measures the ministry is taking to ensure the safety of residents during heavy rains. Honorable Speaker, the committee has since received response from the Ministry of Roads and Transport, which I now wish to make. The ministry submitted that Kapenguria Lodwar Road is part of the national road network, which is managed by the ministry through its implementing agency, the Kenya National Highway Authority, KENHA. On 29th April 2024, a flash flood washed away a section of the road pavement in the vicinity of Lowe's Market in West Pokot County, which disrupted traffic flow at this location. Honorable Speaker, the following remedial measures were taken immediately to reinstate traffic movement and repair the road. KENHA immediately mobilized an emergency framework contractor to construct temporary diversion around the damaged road section. The temporary diversion allowed vehicles to bypass the affected section and enable resumption of traffic movement. The diversion was completed and made operational approximately 6 hours after the washout occurred. Number 2, once the temporary diversion was reconstructed and traffic flow was reinstated, the road maintenance team was able to complete installation of culverts and rebuild the embankment and pavement which had been washed away, thus repairing the damage caused by the floods incident. The repaired section was opened to public traffic on 13th May 2024. Honorable Speaker, With regards to the long-term measures the ministry is taking to ensure safety of residents during heavy rains, the ministry stated that it has been progressively constructing sections of Kapenguria-Lodwar Road in the last few years. This reconstruction process includes replacing all drifts with bridges, installing culverts with high drainage capacity, widening the road cross-section, installing a stronger and more durable pavement, and gradually making the road more resilient to flood damage. The reconstructing, therefore, provides a permanent long-term solution to the disruption of traffic and risk to the safety of residents that are caused by flash floods from time to time. The ministry submitted that as of May 2024, the road section between Lokichar and Lodwar, together with the standalone bridge section at Kainuk, had been fully reconstructed, while the road section between Kapenguria and Lokichar were awaiting the commencement of reconstruction. Additionally, the government has secured support from development partners towards reconstructing all the roads section between Kitale, Kapenguria, Lokichar. The German Development Agency KfW will support the reconstruction of Kitale Morpus section, while the African Development Bank will support reconstruction of Morpus Lokichar section. Reconstructing of the Kitale Morpus section is anticipated to commence in July 2024 this year, Mr. Speaker, while the reconstruction of Morpus Lokichar section is anticipated to commence in the second quarter of the 2025 calendar year. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Honorable Kasiwai, member for... She's there. Honorable Kasiwai, you've heard the response. Give her the mic.
Mr. Speaker, I want to say the answer is okay, though I'm waiting to see it in action. Thank you.
Thank you. Next order. Hold. Yes, Clive.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I'm rising to follow up on a statement that I sought on 2nd May regarding the status of the Kenya Digital Economy Acceleration Project. This is a statement I sought from the chairperson of the Departmental Committee on Communication, Information and Innovation regarding the status of the Kenya Digital Economy Acceleration Project. Mr. Speaker, this was to follow up on what happened with the World Bank disbursement of US dollars 390 million disbursed in the year 2023. Mr. Speaker, while I sought that statement on 2nd May, I was informed that I will get a response 2 weeks later. I'm not sure whether Honorable Kiarie is still counting the 2 weeks or he meant 2 years. Honorable Kiarie. So, Mr. Speaker.
Is he here?
He's here.
KJ?
Honorable Speaker,
yes.
Honorable Speaker, it is true that we had given a commitment for 2 weeks, and the committee has been applying itself on the matter, but save for the disruptions that have been there in terms of workings of our committees, it has taken a bit longer than we expected. Honorable Speaker, in a week and a half, we shall be presenting our report on the statement that had been sought by the Honorable Member.
Thank you.
It's an assurance that we give.
Next order.
Order number 8, the Division of Revenue Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 38 of 2024, first reading. A bill for an act of Parliament to amend the Division of Revenue Act 2024.
Hold on. Honorable members, on the request of the Majority Leader, I will rearrange the order paper a little so that order number 10 precedes order number 9. So, clerk, call out order number 10. When we are done with order number 10, then we'll come back to order number 9.
Order number 10, motion, consideration of Senate amendments to the Conflict of Interest Bill, National Assembly Bill number 12 of 2023.
Honorable members who are on the screen, if you had logged in to speak to order number 9, you may log out so that we have new interests developing on the new bill, on the motion on the conflict of interest bill. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, and I beg to move that the Senate's amendments to the Conflict of Interest Bill, National Assembly Bill number 12, 2023, be now considered. Honorable Speaker, pursuant to the Standing Order number 48.
Leader, hold on a bit. Take your seat. Order, honorable members, I'll take you back to order number 3. Majority Leader, you hold. Those members on their feet, take your seats. Honorable Mudhoni, take the nearest seat. Millie, do the same. Order. Honorable Farah, take the nearest seat. Order. Honorable Mukunji, take the nearest seat. Honorable members, I have a message to convey from His Excellency the President. Honorable members, the message is on the nomination of persons for appointment to offices of Cabinet Secretaries. Honorable members, Standing Order 42-1 relating to messages from the President provide that the Speaker shall read to the House any message from the President delivered to the Speaker for communication to the House. In this regard, I wish to convey to the House that this afternoon I have received a further message from His Excellency the President notifying the nomination of various persons to appointment to the offices of Cabinet Secretaries. The names are in addition to the ones I conveyed to the House yesterday. In the message, His Excellency the President conveys that in exercise of powers conferred on him by Articles 152(2) of the Constitution, as read together with Section 3 and 5 of the Public Appointments Parliamentary Approval Act 2011, he nominates various persons for appointment to the aforementioned offices. For clarity, Article 152(2) of the Constitution states, and I quote, "The President shall nominate and with the approval of the National Assembly appoint Cabinet Secretaries." The names of persons submitted to this House for approval for appointment as Cabinet Secretaries are as follows: John Mbadi Ngongo, EGH, Cabinet Secretary, the Order, merely, Cabinet Secretary, the National Treasury and Economic Planning. Honorable Salim Mvuriangala Mugala, EGH, Cabinet Secretary, Ministry of Investment, Trade and Industry. Honorable Rebecca Miano, EGH, Cabinet Secretary, Ministry of Tourism and Wildlife. Honorable James Opio Wandai, EGH, Cabinet Secretary, Minister of Energy and Petroleum. Honorable Onesimus Kipchumba Murkomen, EGH, Cabinet Secretary, Minister of Youth Affairs, Creative Economy and Sports. Honorable Hassan Ali Joho, EGH, Cabinet Secretary, Minister of Youth Ministry of Mining, Blue Economy and Maritime Affairs. Honorable Dr. Alfred Nganga Mutua, EGH, Cabinet Secretary, Minister of Labor and Social Protection. Honorable Wycliffe Ambetsa Oparanya, EGH, Cabinet Secretary, Minister of Cooperative and Micro, Small and Medium Enterprises Development. Honorable Justin Betan Njoka Muturi, EGH, Cabinet Secretary, Minister of Public Service and Human Capital Development. Honorable Ms. Stella Soy Langat, Cabinet Secretary, Ministry of Gender, Culture, the Arts and Heritage. In view of the foregoing and pursuant to the provisions of Section 8 of the Public Appointments, Parliamentary Approval Act of 2011, Order Mayaka. In view of the foregoing and pursuant to the provisions of Section 8 of the Public Appointments Parliamentary Approval Act 2011, as read together with the Standing Order 423, I hereby refer the message from the President together with the curriculum vitae of the nominees to the Committee on Appointments. Honorable members, Section 8 of the Public Appointments Parliamentary Approval Act 2011 provides that unless otherwise provided in law, the committee to which such nomination is referred shall consider the matter and table a report in the House within 28 days. It is therefore imperative that the Committee on Appointments consolidates the names contained in the two lists and immediately commence the process of consideration of the nominees. The committee is expected to immediately notify the nominees and the general public, commence the necessary approval hearings and table its report in the House soonest to enable the House to consider the nominees within the stipulated timelines. I thank you. Call out again now order number 10. Number 9.
Order number 10, motion, consideration of Senate amendments to the Conflict of Interest Bill, National Assembly Bill number 12 of 2023.
Majority Leader.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, allow me to move that the Senate amendments to the Conflict of Interest Bill, National Assembly Bill number 12 of 2023, be now considered. Honorable Speaker, pursuant to Standing Order 48, allow me to move this motion in an amended form, which is that the Senate amendments to the Conflict of Interest Bill. Honorable Speaker, if you can.
Order, honorable members. Order. Honorable Raphael Wanjala. Recess quietly. Members on their feet, take your seats. Honorable Sirima, you're a senior. You should be the last to interrupt proceedings. Members who wish to walk out of the chamber, do it with order. This bill that is being moved has tremendous consequences on many of the things that this country is doing. And I would expect you to listen to the majority leader, contribute where you can, or vote when the vote is called. It is not fair for you to vote on a bill you have not even listened to.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I think members were a bit excited because of the communication you made, especially considering that there are a number of nominees who are members of this House, and it is premature of us to get excited because we are expected to vet these nominees. And I could only take this opportunity to congratulate my good friend, the Honorable Millie Mabona Odhiambo, who I see has taken over a seat, not a position. And any member can sit anywhere, by the way. Therefore, allow me, Honorable Speaker, I was saying, understanding Order 48, to allow me to move this motion in an amended form, which is that the Senate amendments to the Conflict of Interests Bill, National Assembly Bill number 12 of 2023, be now rejected. Honorable Speaker, under the normal circumstances, such a motion to consider Senate amendments to a bill that originated from the National Assembly would ordinarily be moved by the chairperson of the relevant committee, under whose mandate the bill falls, and in this case, I think it's a JLR committee. And Honorable Speaker, in the present case, I have decided to move this motion as the sponsor of the bill to expedite its consideration owing to the peculiar circumstances of the positions taken by the two houses of the bill, on the bill, Honorable Speaker. And thank you, Honorable Speaker, that you have pointed it out to members that this bill has huge implications on the conduct of business for both public and state officers, and therefore it's important that members pay keen attention to all the amendments that were proposed by the Senate, which were communicated to the House on the 4th of June 2024, and the amendments were committed to the Departmental Committee on JLAC for consideration and reporting to the House. The nature of the amendments received from the Senate has largely informed my decision to move this motion to catalyze its inevitable referral to mediation. Because, Honorable Speaker, as I said, the Senate made amendments that would necessitate us getting into a process of mediation. And however long JLAC team takes, I think the end result will be the same, getting into a mediation committee that can unlock the extremely divergent views of the two houses on the content of the bill, which I will shortly highlight. Honorable Speaker, when I introduced this bill, it sought to repeal the Public Officer Ethics Act of 2003 and establish a framework for managing conflict of interest in the discharge of public duties under the general supervision of the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, EACC. Currently, Honorable Speaker, the Public Officer Ethics Act establishes various entities as responsible commissions for various state and public officers. For instance, Honorable Speaker, the Committee of Powers and Privileges of the National Assembly is a responsible commission for these members of parliament who are not listening, Honorable Speaker. It is a responsible commission for members of the National Assembly, while the Parliamentary Service Commission is a responsible commission for all parliamentary staff. The bill, as published, sought to change this by making EACC responsible for all state and public officers. Honorable Speaker, when this House considered the bill, it made various... I shall not repeat because you are asked by the Speaker to pay attention. I have told you, under the Public Officers and Ethics Act, it establishes various commissions that are responsible for the conduct of overseeing conflict of interest. Under this Act, the Powers and Privileges Committee of the National Assembly is the responsible commission under the Act for members of Parliament, while the Parliamentary Service Commission is the responsible commission for members of staff. And I further said that the bill, as published, sought to change this by making EACC the responsible commission for all state and public officers. I further told you that when this House considered the bill, and we did all consider in second reading and the Committee of the Whole, we made various amendments which sought to do a number of things, including one, maintaining the existing model of wealth declarations to entities that directly supervise the conduct and ethics of the various categories of public officers. In this regard, the House agreed to repeal the Public Officer Ethics Act and insisted on transferring specific provisions from the Act to the bill. Two, we align the bill with the responsibilities of members of Parliament, and this is important, members, that when in Committee of the Whole we considered amendments, we aligned the bill to your responsibilities as members of Parliament on declaration of conflict of interest in parliamentary debate under the Parliamentary Powers and Privileges Act of 2017. You remember the bill, as was published, was creating a conflict of interest even on matters that pertain to your work as a member of parliament. And we sought to make those amendments during the Committee of the Whole. 3, we expanded the declarations to include previous categories of public and state officers that were not expressly provided for under the Public Officer and Ethics Act, for instance, that of the Chief Justice and Cabinet Secretaries. 4, we limited the definition of the word relative. Those who are here during second reading, you will all recall the very broad definition of the word relative in the conduct of affairs of a state or public officer, and we limited this definition to the affairs of a state or public officer and his or her dependent children. And we also, in 5, prohibited, not only prohibiting public officers from contracting with public bodies in which they are employed. You will recall the bill as published prohibited public and state officers and their broad definition of relatives from conducting business with any entity of government. Conversely, Honorable Speaker, from the message received from the Senate has reversed everything that this House passed. The Senate has deleted and proposed repeal of the Public Officer Ethics Act. This has resulted in the proposed repeal of clauses including those on functions of the Commission, participation of members in proceedings before Parliament or county assemblies. Therefore, there is debate you cannot interact with as a member of Parliament or as a member of county assemblies on the basis of what the Senate has done. Acquisition of interest in partnerships and private companies, restricted gainful employment, for instance, people who are here and are lawyers, professional accountants, etc. The register of conflict of interest, where this register will be. Prohibitions on state officers after leaving office, having served as a state officer, what other gainful employment can you get into? And we had made amendments relating to that. The prohibition against representing people before reporting entities, and declaration of income, assets, and liabilities by public officers. Honorable Speaker, additionally, the Senate has deleted the EACC as administrator of the bill and deleted all provisions on conflicts of interest in the Public Officer Ethics Act, the Leadership and Integrity Act, the Anti-Corruption and Economic Crimes Act, and the Senate amendments are the complete opposite of what the National Assembly considered and passed in the bill. I therefore move that the amendments be rejected for these reasons to allow us to proceed to mediation. Honorable Speaker, I've just given the background of what we had done in this bill and what the Senate has proposed to do in the amendments that I'm calling on the House to reject. Because what the amendments that the Senate has passed, besides negating everything that we did to make this bill become workable, what the Senate has done, and without casting aspersions on the other House, Honorable Speaker, must be informed by a huge conflict of interest in the other House. Because, Honorable Speaker, you appreciate this is a House that has been unable to impeach even a single governor. And I saw them the other day pontificating on issues to do with integrity and corruption in this country, Honorable Speaker. But, Honorable Speaker, and you know, we have restrained ourselves over the last 2 years from discussing the other House or even the conduct of members of that House, even under extreme provocation. But, Honorable Speaker, we must stand with the people of Kenya. This bill is critical in the fight against corruption. The dilution that the other House, Senate, has visited on this bill makes this bill completely unworkable. It creates a very fertile ground for corruption and conflict of interest to continue taking root in our republic, Honorable Speaker. Therefore, we must be the bigger brother between the two houses.
We must be the house that stands with the people of Kenya who have spoken loudly and told us that matters touching on conflict of interest, matters touching on theft of public resources must come to an end. We must be that house, Honorable Speaker, that today will stand with the people of Kenya and tell our brothers in the Senate that it will not be business as usual for governors to steal and get away scot-free with what they have stolen from the people of Kenya, knowing that because of conflict of interest, they can influence what will happen in the other house and their county assemblies. We must be that house. Honorable Speaker, this house has a singular responsibility of being the people's representatives, while the other house represents counties. Being the people's representatives, Honorable Speaker, we must be the ones to stand today with the people of Kenya. And I think, Honorable Speaker, listening to what Kenyans are saying out there, and I have seen this being one of the bills that even the young Kenyans in our country and other Kenyans of goodwill who want a change in the manner things are done in this country have asked the Houses of Parliament to expedite with, is this bill. And therefore, Honorable Speaker, we have a national duty to reject these amendments, get into mediation, and show our brothers and sisters in the other house that it is only right to do what is good for the greater good of our people, not what is good for leaders and public officers who hold office. Honorable Speaker, this bill, and I have heard in today's communication from the President, he has also alluded to it, is an important bill not just for us as public and state officers, even to protect ourselves as state officers against accusations, unfair accusations of engaging in corruption or corrupt activities, but also in protecting the assets of the Kenyan people against public and state officers, Honorable Speaker, and even people in the private sector, Honorable Speaker. This bill was misconstrued in the other house to be speaking to just public and state officers. The conduct of corrupt activities in this country, Honorable Speaker, is also largely driven by the private sector. This conflict of interest bill speaks also to conflict of interest by the private sector. 1 minute. Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I was saying, for instance, if you look at the lot and the looting that has pervaded in the old NHIF, the National Health Insurance Fund, it has not come out of conflict of interest by particularly state officers. Private entities have engaged in massive looting and corruption in NHIF. And therefore, Honorable Speaker, when you run a private hospital and you engage with a public entity, it is only a law like this that will protect the assets of the Kenyan people. And I want to beg this House, as I move and call on the Vice Chair of the Jailer Committee, the Honorable Mwengi Mutuse, to second, I want to call on this House to reject in total all the amendments by the Senate to protect the people of Kenya from conflict of interest, corruption, and wanton looting of their assets and resources. I beg to move and ask Honorable Mutuse to second.
Mutuse.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I stand to second the motion that has been ably moved by our majority leader, that the Senate amendments to the conflict of interest bill that was considered by my committee, the Justice and Legal Affairs Committee, that have been referred to this House by the Senate be rejected. Mr. Speaker, the amendments that have been referred by the Senate are very retrogressive. They are in themselves going to undermine very directly the war on corruption. They are in themselves making the conflict of interest bill an empty shell of its former objectives. Mr. Speaker, all of us in this House agree that the reason why we have wanton corruption in the national government and in the county governments is because those who are in leadership are able to do and transact with the offices that they also superintend. And the bill intends to remove conflict of interest so that government entities are not corrupted by people who have been appointed or elected into office. The Senate has made amendments that make it possible, for example, for a permanent secretary to own a company and do business in a State Department that the permanent secretary is an accounting officer. This House must stand and say that this cannot be allowed. Out there, Kenyans are saying that we are able to fund our own development, that we may not even be able to need to increase taxes if we are able to take care of corruption and take care of wastage. What the Senate is doing through the amendments is to legalize corruption, is to make it possible for a member of parliament, for example, to be able to transact with the Parliamentary Service Commission, which in itself is even rejected under our own parliamentary privileges and standing orders. So, Mr. Speaker, as I second this motion, I urge the House to reject the Senate amendments and that the bill be referred under Article 113 for mediation, so that we do not undermine the war on corruption and that we take into effect the voice of Kenyans. And therefore, I second and urge that we reject the Senate amendments and refer the bill for mediation. I thank you, Mr. Speaker, and urge the House to do as required through the powers conferred on the Speaker under Article 113 to appoint a mediation committee. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable members, I now propose the question, which is that the Senate amendments to the Conflict of Interest Bill, National Assembly Bill number 12 of 2023, be now considered. And remember that the Majority Leader moved it in an amended form. So, Ndindi Nyoro, are you here on budget? No contributors? Yes. Wangare? Wangare wants to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to support the Majority Leader on this bill. And, Mr. Speaker, I think the most saddening thing with the amendments done by the Senate is that it takes us very far back in the war of corruption. Mr. Speaker, the issues we have been dealing with for the last 1 month or so, generated by Kenyans, by Gen Zs, by civil society, Mr. Speaker, most of them could be sorted if we dealt with corruption. Because, Mr. Speaker, every year we have had issues of pilferages of money, both at the national level and at the county level. So, Mr. Speaker, anything that would jeopardize that fight should be rejected, and we should actually support this bill and the way we had passed it, Mr. Speaker. And we shall reject the amendments of the Senate and go with what we had passed as the National Assembly, because they called us sitting, the Senate called us sitting, and I'm avoiding to dwell into casting aspersions to the Senate, but I think the Senate the track of what they should be doing. Because, Mr. Speaker, one of the biggest issues we have is that we have so much money going to the counties, but we don't see the value of it. We don't see governors being held accountable. In other words, Mr. Speaker, what we have seen is the Senate being obsessed. And I say that because I've been a former senator, Mr. Speaker, that they forget their major and main mandate of protecting the counties, Mr. Speaker. What we have seen is that we have the obsession of the Senate by actually even calling cabinet secretaries to ask them questions. Mr. Speaker, they should actually be calling the governors and the CECs from the counties to show accountability, because the mandate of oversight of government in the national level is vested in this House, Mr. Speaker. We must actually, Mr. Speaker, have the conversation of whether a CS should appear before the Senate or it should be a governor and the CECs, Mr. Speaker, because we have now our CSs giving excuses that they are not able to come to this National Assembly because either in the morning they were in the Senate or in the afternoon they were in the Senate. It has become a matter of duplication, Mr. Speaker, and we should be able to deal with it at some point. But on this bill, Mr. Speaker, even the President, as he made this address that he made earlier, Mr. Speaker, he alluded to this issue, because if we do not deal with matter governance, with matter corruption, then we'll have done nothing, Mr. Speaker. So I hope that we'll do justice, and the members that will be chosen under Article 113 on mediation can be able to do justice to this bill, so that we can be able to properly deal with corruption. Because you cannot say you're taking from this hand and the right hand is hidden behind, Mr. Speaker. So I actually support the majority leader, and that we should reject the amendments done by the Senate and this bill to proceed as it was, Mr. Speaker, so that we are able to deal properly with the issues that have been raised for the last few weeks. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Oundo.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. When we enacted the new constitution under Chapter 6, we were very careful. We knew absolute power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. And that's why Chapter 6 of Integrity and Leadership was inserted in the Constitution. We proceeded to prepare an Act of Parliament that made a mockery of Chapter 6. We proceeded to have various anti-corruption laws that do not seem to be biting, because outside the Honorable Speaker, many Kenyans believe it's the elected leaders, it's the political class that the purveyors of corruption in this country. Honorable Speaker, we as Parliament, and that includes National Assembly and Senate, if we can water down the bill that we passed here to make it practically impossible to hold accountable elected leaders, then, Honorable Speaker, we are taking this country into abyss. And that's why I support, as moved by the majority leader, that what Senate did was a great disservice for this country. And, Honorable Speaker, I think Senate is suffering from inferiority complex. Senate thinks that members of Parliament here, National Assembly, have got so much money that they're wallowing in a lot of money. And that's why they go to the pettiness to come and see how many cars are in the parking slot of the National Assembly. How many new cars or how many new tires members of Parliament have bought. They have this misconception, even those who have been here, Honorable Speaker, that members of Parliament use CDF to fund their personal lifestyle. Honorable Speaker, we cannot afford to allow conflict of interest not to be called out. Honorable Speaker, where we are in a position of influence. So if we allow ourselves to also start doing business with our own entity, it means therefore, Honorable Speaker, no other Kenyan will ever get a contract, will ever get any job in this country unless you know somebody. We must win ourselves this mentality that you must know somebody for you to get employed, that you must be connected to you for get a tender, that you must bribe for you to be paid for any work you have done anywhere. Honorable Speaker, I want to urge those who will be appointed to go to mediation committee. I want to urge, because at times have been some of them, senators can bully ordinary members to accept their way. Here we go with the irreducible minimum. The irreducible minimum is the bill that we passed in this House. Any other story, Honorable Speaker, we will expose them and surrender them to Gen Z to deal with them accordingly. Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I support the motion by the majority leader.
Member for Gishugu. Give him the mic.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I support the motion as moved by the leader of my majority. And Honorable Speaker, the principle of conflict of interest has been there for many, many years. And it has been loosely been used under the tenets of natural justice. And this issue has been left by the courts to determine whether there is conflict of interest or not. But now here comes a law that is very explicit to explain matters of conflict of interest. And this House, Mr. Speaker, will not allow Senate to stand on the way of Kenyans in fight of corruption, because that is what they want us to, they want to take us back to. And we have to stand as a House and support the government, which is now committed towards fighting corruption. And the executive, through the president, has already pronounced itself that this is a government that is willing to fight corruption. And therefore, Senate should not come on the way of the will of the Kenyans to fight corruption. And that is why, Mr. Speaker, without belaboring the points, I support the motion as moved and will reject in totality the proposals that have been made by the Senate. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
KJ.
Mr. Speaker, I do stand up to support the report as presented and amended by the Leader of Majority, and also to object to the changes that have been put in by the Senate. Honorable Speaker, right from the onset, I'd like to say that this bill in itself was a great opportunity for this House to start addressing some of the matters that are being conversed, even by the young people who are calling themselves Gen Zs. The issue of conflict of interest in the management of affairs of government is a thorn in the flesh to this country. So, Mr. Speaker, where this House was seeking to remedy some of these maladies, it looks like Senate is keen on taking us back to a place where we are not able to counter the issue of conflict of interest. And for that reason, Mr. Speaker, I do object. Mr. Speaker, the issues that are being canvassed in the country today are calling us to order. It is at a point like this when we ought to ask ourselves as a republic, issues of conflict of interest aside, even the constitution of this country, Mr. Speaker, is now ready for an audit. This constitution has been with us for a good 15 years. It is at this point that we should ask ourselves, how has this constitution served us in the last 15 years? And when we audit the constitution, we shall put Senate on the spot. We shall ask ourselves, in its composition as it is right now, Mr. Speaker, is the Senate serving Kenya right? And to my mind, there are some amendments in the Constitution that would occasion for us to relook at how Senate is constituted. As it is, Mr. Speaker, Senate is required to be attending to the matters of counties, Mr. Speaker. And even as the Gen Zs are calling out the rot in the national government, we know that there are even bigger problems in the counties, Mr. Speaker. And if Senate was true to its roles, Senate would have already gone into these county governments and checked on the rot that is happening in the executives of counties, Mr. Speaker. The rot and the conflict of interest that is happening in the business that is being conducted in counties. So, Mr. Speaker, I do object vehemently, and I say that even as we are looking at these matters of conflict of interest, it is the right time that this country had a conversation with itself on how the Constitution has served us for the last 15 years. Finally, Mr. Speaker, I do believe that if we look at how Senate is composed, we as a country might decide to borrow a leaf from jurisdictions like that of the UK, where the House of Commons has its job laid out for itself. But the House of Senate in the UK, Mr. Speaker, and you would be one to tell us, is a house that is reserved for very esteemed people and citizens, Mr. Speaker. That if we were to recompose our Senate, we might decide that we shall reserve the Senate for those Kenyans who have served so diligently in very specific areas, and they would be the people that we would be nominating to Senate, so that it is a proper nyumba la wazee, which advises the country on very topical and very technical issues from a point of information. As it is right now, the Senate does find itself at times with no business to prosecute other than to meddle with the work that is being done by the National Assembly. And as such, they use their time to do what we have seen this afternoon. So, Mr. Speaker, I object the amendments made by Senate, and I do support the report as presented and as amended and presented by the Leader of Majority. I do support, Mr. Speaker. Thank you very much.
Those who are on the screen, like Ndindi Nyoro, Johanna Ngeno, John Gitonga, you are all for appropriations. Now the mover should be called upon to reply. Majority Leader, you may now reply.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. And let me thank the few members who have contributed and commit that we will, upon rejection of the amendments from the Senate, and I want to beg that members do vote to reject, we will immediately constitute a mediation committee to be able to consider this bill and amendments afresh. I therefore beg to reply.
Order, members, take your seats. Members on their feet, Sabina Chege, take your seat. Order, Sabina Chege, take a seat. Wamshomba, take your seat. Pasaris, take your seat. Honorable members, I now put the question, and those who vote yes will be supporting the amendments from the Senate, and those who vote no will be rejecting. I now put the question, which is that the Senate amendments to the Conflict of Interest Bill, National Assembly Bill number 12 of 2023 be now considered. As members of that opinion say aye. As members of the contrary opinion say nay. The nays have it. Go back to order number 9.
Order number 9, motion, consideration of the first supplementary estimates for the financial year 2024-2025 general debate.
Honorable Ndindi Nyoro, you are the mover, right? Okay. Johanna Ngeno, you are not ready. John Gitonga.
Thank you, Speaker.
Yeah. Are you ready to speak?
Okay. Thank you, Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I thank you. I want to thank you for this opportunity also to contribute on this budget, supplementary budget. Speaker, we have realized that there has been difficulties in the country, Mr. Speaker, and this prompted the withdrawal of the finance bill, which was meant to finance to some extent some of the expenditures in our budget, Speaker, and therefore there had to be some austerity measures and some changes to accommodate the much we can collect. Mr. Speaker, I wish to thank the chair for budget for sitting and looking into the issues that we had tabled before the committee. And Speaker, I want to say that as a committee for housing, we factored in, of course, Mr. Speaker, the issues, the needs, which, of course, the people of this country were expecting to appear in that particular supplementary budget. Speaker, we want also to understand that this supplementary budget will have a lot of constraints, and, of course, there are so many shortfalls, and especially on funding some vital projects and programs. Mr. Speaker, I particularly, the State Department for Public Works was majorly affected, Mr. Speaker. And remember, this is a very vital organ, especially on inspecting and monitoring and evaluating all the projects which are done in the country, Mr. Speaker. But most importantly, remember the rain that ravaged the country, Mr. Speaker, carried so many food breaches which had been done to allow students cross over to the other areas, to allow even women who are crossing to the other areas for markets, carrying their products. Mr. Speaker, we heard, or the State Department had requested for the construction of the food bridges to allow these crossovers. But, Mr. Speaker, due to the fall of the finance bill, Mr. Speaker, the whole budget which was allocating these particular activities was completely downed. Mr. Speaker, the budget also has given breadth
to the employment permanently of the JSS teachers. Remember, Mr. Speaker, we still have a very big and a huge challenge on the issue of JSS, on the issue of our classrooms. Mr. Speaker, this CBC was introduced without considering so many factors. Now it is a baby that we have to nurture. It's something that we have to deal with. It is a matter that we cannot throw it out of the window, Mr. Speaker. And therefore, when this budget was cut, the President looked into whether we are going to throw out the JSS teachers, because that was a very big challenge. But in his wisdom and the wisdom of the Budget Committee, they have managed to allocate good funds to ensure that we have all these JSS teachers employed and be placed under permanent employment. Mr. Speaker, remember this is a very vital area. We also ensure that the CBA, collective bargaining agreement, is considered. And this is a very vital thing, which of course will also give our teachers our teachers comfort, because you know, Mr. Speaker, the foundation of this country is based on education. And just like what somebody said, or a very great person one day said, and education is an equalizer. It is a factor that equalizes all the rich and the poor. They put them in the same pool, Mr. Speaker. So this budget is considering majorly and putting into serious consideration on matters of education, because that is one area that we consider as very fundamental. Mr. Speaker, we know even the roads, we know the electricity, the energy, the Ministry of Energy, most of the issues were cut. But Mr. Speaker, most importantly, now that from the mood of the communication you just sent to this House, Mr. Speaker, you read to this House, Mr. Speaker, where most of the nominees to the cabinet are now from the opposition side, Mr. Speaker. I hope it is now going to bring harmony in this House and especially in the country, so that whatever business we are going to be transacting in this House will sail through. And I'm taking this opportunity to welcome members of the opposition now that they are part of government, to help this country to stabilize. And I know the reason why we had that particular move, Mr. Speaker, is to allow this country to have stability, allow this country to move forward, allow this country to focus, allow this country to actually ensure that all the issues, all the projects which have been slated are properly delivered and done. And even as we are passing this supplementary budget one, Mr. Speaker, I wish, as a word of caution, Mr. Speaker, we have seen, even in our committees when we were trying to pass some of the proposals by the state departments, we wanted to ensure that most of the monies, because, Mr. Speaker, where we are collecting this money, the people of the Republic who we are taxing to get this money are going through a lot of pain. So our major request and demand by this House, Mr. Speaker, is that any money allocated for majorly projects, Mr. Speaker, should be utilized on projects, and especially projects, Mr. Speaker, which bring development to our people and to the people of this Republic. So, Mr. Speaker, I wish to say that we will, as much as possible, try to cut some of the expenditures. But most importantly, Mr. Speaker, the cuts which have been placed on development areas, Mr. Speaker, the little that has remained must be properly utilized. And now that we are having almost a new cabinet, though some of them are the same old faces, but we are having almost a new cabinet. We want to ask the members of the cabinet who are coming in, where especially if they were to be passed or vetted and passed in this House, Mr. Speaker, that it is time to work for this country. It is not time to work for yourself. This is no time to reap. This is no time to steal. This is no time to waste. These are monies which we collect painfully from the people of this Republic. So even as we are going to vet these particular cabinet secretaries whose names have been forwarded to this House, Mr. Speaker, our core mandate as this House is to ensure that we vet and pass members of the cabinet who we know their background has nothing to do with corruption. And if they pass that test, Mr. Speaker, we hope they are going to deliver to this nation. They are going to build this nation. They are going to work hard, just like what the president is trying to do, so that we don't look back and say, these are the people who failed this country. So each one of us has a responsibility. As a House, we have the responsibility. As a cabinet, they have the responsibility. As the president also has the responsibility to ensure that whatever money we appropriate in this House, Mr. Speaker, that whatever money we tax the people of this country, Mr. Speaker, and put in the budget must be properly utilized without corruption, without stealing. I thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I support.
Nairobi Women Rep. Oh, you are not ready. Oh, Rosa Buyu.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity. Mr. Speaker, first and foremost, in supporting the supplementary that we've just had, I would like to thank the Gen Zs for giving us the opportunity to relook at that budget. Mr. Speaker, I actually support, because when you look at what has been presented now, there's a lot of austerity measures that's been put in place, which means that money is going to go to good use. Mr. Speaker, however, I would like to say that there's still opportunity to better that budget by looking at duplication in different ministries. Mr. Speaker, when that is realigned, I'm sure the budget will even be lower. But Mr. Speaker, this afternoon, as a woman who has been on the forefront in the women's movement, I want to take this opportunity as a key member of ODM and Azimio. I want to take this opportunity to announce the new leader of minority, Mr. Speaker, the Honorable Millie Odhiambo Mabona. Mr. Speaker, nobody should tell me that I have no authority to do that. I've been in ODM since its inception from 2005. And I've seen women be so loyal to this party called ODM. I've seen women be on the forefront of Azimio. And it is time that a woman is given an opportunity to lead this party in the House. Mr. Speaker, I'm speaking of a woman who's distinguished in terms of her contribution.
Yes, order. There's a point of order. Yes, Kamket. What's your point of order? Yes, Kamket.
Mr. Speaker.
Yes.
I'm standing on standing order number 91, and also on relevance, and also, Mr. Speaker, the honourable member is speaking, is anticipating debate, because there is no motion in this House, Mr. Speaker, about any appointment. There is no motion on this floor about any appointment of anyone to anywhere. And from the experience, Mr. Speaker, from our own experience yesterday, we now know that what is announced outside,
what is your point of order?
There, on two matters. Is she in order, Mr. Speaker, for the honourable lady to anticipate debate? And two, is she relevant in what she's saying? What she's saying relevant to the debate on supplementary?
Continue.
Mr. Speaker, I'm not preempting any debate. I'm not talking about any cabinet minister, but I'm talking about a seat that seems to be vacant, and I'm talking about a distinguished member of this National Assembly. I'm talking about a woman who is having her 4th term, and a woman who's distinguished in debates in this House. I'm talking about a distinguished lawyer, and I'm talking about a distinguished human rights defender. And I'm saying it is time for Millie Odhiambo Mabona to take the leadership of minority. And thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Order, honorable lady members. I know you are operating within the exuberance of feminism, but your wailing in the House is out of order. Next, we have John Gitonga. Is he here? You know, some of you key in and then leave. Is he here? No. Kiaria?
Mr. Speaker, it's a great honor to be contributing to this motion on supplementary budget. And as I speak chairing the Committee on Communication, Information and Innovation. And Mr. Speaker, yes, we have been given an opportunity to look at the budget. We in the sector are actually running into a big problem, even with the budget cuts that are happening. Mr. Speaker, if you look at the trend of how the cuts were done at Treasury, they were targeted on certain issues. In the attempt to implement austerity measures, the area of communication is greatly affected across board. Unfortunately, Mr. Speaker, there are ministries and departments and agencies in these governments whose sole responsibility is communication, Mr. Speaker. For example, there is the Department of Broadcast and Telecommunication. In the blanket cuts, this department has been left with a situation where we might go for an entire year where they are only able to pay salaries but not conduct any developmental issue, being that their core business is communication, in such a way that if blanket cuts are done across board affecting communication, their core business is greatly affected. Mr. Speaker, I do support the supplementary budget as we have done. However, Mr. Speaker, it must be said in this parliament that Treasury ought to change its budgeting regime and the way that it does budgeting. Mr. Speaker, Treasury in this country has budgeted for ministries and departments in the same way as it has since 1963, so that sectors that have traditionally enjoyed big budgets continue to enjoy inordinately bigger budgets. The traditional sectors that are capital intensive, that are infrastructure intensive, have continually enjoyed big budgets, budgets that probably are even budgeted for corruption, Mr. Speaker. Emergent sectors, Mr. Speaker, like the sector of telecommunication, the sector of innovation, the sector of information, some of which were small departments in traditional bigger sectors. For example, the sector of ICT and digital economy was traditionally a small department within energy. In Treasury, to their mind, ICT and digital economy still remains in their mind a small department within energy. But if you look at the bottom-up economic transformational agenda, if you look at Marshall plans like the Kenya Superhighway, Digital Superhighway program, if you look at Vision 2030, emerging sectors like ICT and the digital economy might be the place where we find a solution for the issues that are being canvassed, even the issues that are being canvassed by the Gen Z on the streets. They are talking about youth engagement. They are talking about employment. This employment will not come from the bigger sectors. It will not come from corporate Kenya. These youth will be meaningfully engaged if members in this house are able to institute digital innovation hubs in each and every ward of this country. It will happen when we are able to make connectivity, get to places like Wajir and Mandera and the other far-flung places in this country. These opportunities will be available when our young people are able to get digital online jobs, where they are able to go to a digital innovation hub in their village and they are able to be paid in dollars. But Mr. Speaker, that is the case we find ourselves in, where Treasury is still budgeting in the way they used to budget in the 60s. Mr. Speaker, our sector in the ICT and digital economy has proven that if you invest 1 shilling, you're going to reap 5 shillings out of that investment. So what we are decrying here, Mr. Speaker, I do stand up as a village crier, saying that even as we prosecute these budgets, Parliament will have to apply itself better so that we can remedy the ills that are coming from Treasury, which are traditionally budgeting in a way that does not benefit us and does not drive us in the way of solving some of the problems that the young people are telling us. So, Mr. Speaker, I do support the consideration of this first supplementary budget, and I do laud the members of the Digital Economy Committee, up to and including the Honorable Dr. Bensouda, who I see here, because they applied themselves well in this supplementary budget to be able to remedy some of those ills that we picked out that were occasioned by the way that Treasury is budgeting for this country. And I want to laud these members of our ICT committee and remind you that in the absence of a committee of the future in this jurisdiction, the Committee on Communication, Information and Innovation is actually the committee of the future. And we shall take our rightful place as Parliament so that we budget as is required by the Constitution, where budgeting happens on this floor in this House. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and I do support.
Zamzam, you are on the... Who is the member at the end? Mwalio. Honorable Mwalio.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I want to stand to support the supplementary one estimates and be able to hear some grievances that the supplementary budget has created. In this supplementary, then the cuts that we have been able to cut, we have been able to remove entirely majority of the development funds in many sectors and also the ministries. And what we are doing by so doing is that we are taking people out of business and also creating unemployment. Because if there is no development, it means that the contractors that have been able to be given some contracting, they have been able to win some tenders, and they have been able to do some works. They are going to have pending bills, and also they are going to lay down the workers that have been employed and engaged in those contracts. Therefore, it is very important to think out of the box, to be able to at least to keep some little money in a development instead of putting removing all the 100% development funds, because it is going to take people to the streets without any employment. If you see the building sector, whereby the contractors normally engage with the government, because the government is the biggest employer of all the contractors, then those workers are going to be left with any job, because there is nothing for development for this year. Number two, in our Committee of Trade, Industry and the Cooperatives, we had checked whereby we can take out money and put whereby we can create some employment in some EPZ, SEZ, in the Rivertex, in the new KCC, whereby we were creating some jobs for the Kenyans, because the Gen Zs are crying because there is no employment. So let us think to be able to be conscious to create some employment so that we can accommodate some of our young people that are in the streets every day. So we will be able to maybe to make some amendments in the third reading, so that we can be able to create some room even for some people to create some employment somewhere, so that these young people can be engaged in some of the developments that are going on. We were told that in the EPZ, they are all lined up of investors who are coming up to invest in those sheds. And those sheds, the money has been removed. So we will not be able to create any employment, and also the investors will find there is nothing, no infrastructure that has been done for them to be able to engage in a meaningful manufacturing, in a meaningful engagement with the government. So let us think twice as we remove and we make the future budgets, so that our goal should be more so by creating employment. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Allow me to give my opinion on the debate concerning the budget estimates that have been tabled. And I want to, first of all, thank the young people of Kenya, because it is because of them that they have given us an opportunity to review these budget estimates and relook at areas where we can be able to reduce our expenditure and plan our money economy in a better way. Mr. Speaker, whereas I support the intentional move by the Budget Committee to allocate more funds in areas where the young people of Kenya may benefit through jobs creation, and more specifically when I talk about job creation, I'm talking about the value addition areas and processing that has been given more attention and allocated more money. The school feeding program that has been able to be given 3 billion shillings. That is a positive move, Mr. Speaker. The intentional move to add more resources to TVETs and Kenya medical training colleges so that we can accommodate more of our young people into the training. And the intentional move to add more money in value addition projects like the ultra-modern fish processing plant in Liwatoni and many other value addition ventures that has received a positive increment on money allocation. Mr. Speaker, whereas I appreciate that the young people of Kenya have been given an opportunity to get more busy with such ventures in value addition, I'm quite concerned because the current president, His Excellency William Samoei Ruto, when he was a deputy president, has pledged many times that he's going to provide milk coolers to most of our farmers in our villages, Githongori constituency being one. Mr. Speaker, his promises has never been fulfilled. And we do understand it is because maybe there was limitation on funding. So the fact that this proposal has allocated more money into buying of milk coolers in this country to a tune of 2 billion is a positive move for me. Not because the farmers did not have the coolers, but because more coolers will create more opportunities for our farmers and across the value chain to create jobs even for the young people. But Mr. Speaker, I'm glad that the chairman of the Budget Committee is in the House. And I would want to have some clarification why the money that was allocated for coffee cherry fund has been reduced with 1 billion shillings. This is something that I have been raising since the beginning of this year. We were promised that we are going to get 4 billion shillings for cherry fund. Later on, we were promised that our farmers, the coffee farmers, are going to be given 6 billion shillings to clear our debts. But according to the document that I have, Madam Speaker, vote number 1173 says that the Ministry of Cooperative and Development Management is going to lose 1 billion shillings recurrent fund from coffee cherry fund. Mr. Speaker, I would want a clarification on why coffee cherry fund is being reduced from whatever was allocated initially to losing 1 billion shillings. Is it that our farmers have not absorbed the money? Is it that they have realized that our farmers have had enough of cherry fund? Now they have to reduce to 1 billion, from 2 billion shillings to 1 billion? Or what is this that has informed the Budget Committee to reduce cherry fund to this level? Mr. Speaker, Madam Speaker, I am a farmer. Sorry. I am a farmer. And I can tell you that not all farmers have received cherry fund as we speak. Some of the farmers requested for 80 shillings per kilo of cherry fund. They only received 20 shillings. There are some factories as we speak who requested for cherry fund and have never received this money. So when we come now and revise the budget and reduce this money in the excuse of that we are adding more coolers, Does it mean that milk farmers who are receiving coolers are more important than coffee farmers? This is a question that I would want to get answer from the relevant committee, because it is not right for us to be playing public relations with our farmers. It is not right for us to be promising our farmers something on television, but when it comes to actual figures, we play around with figures. So I will not support this until I'm clear why coffee farmers are getting a reduction. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. Chair Budget, you'll note the concerns of members. You can respond to them during reply. Dr. Ochanda.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I rise to support the motion on the basis of the timing, in terms of the time when it is falling in. Madam Speaker, this appropriation is coming in at a time when precedents have been created. We have basically created precedents in this country. A precedent, and number one, that a finance bill has been rejected nearly as the first time in the history of this country. Number two, we are doing this against a backdrop that members were very elated about the appropriation that we had done last, before we did the finance bill, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, as I look through this supplementary appropriations, my view is that if we had time, where we are not able to get the 400 billion shillings, Madam Speaker, if we had time, I believe we are able to get this money. Number one is the amount of what is appearing as vote and programs that are placed in different departments, but are getting monies differently. If we went ahead, particularly to synchronize in terms of, for example, if you look at the Department of Immigration, there are things that are talking about population services. Population services are in immigration. Then we also have issues to do with population in planning. I want to believe that if these things were merged and were looked at as one, we would have saved quite a bit of money here. The same goes to where we are having Department of Irrigation, we are having Department of Water. I think these are areas where, if we looked at thoroughly, there are areas where we can make savings. But beyond that, Madam Speaker, since all this began, the head of state has indicated scrapping of more than 40 parastatals. These parastatals are already still here in the supplementaries with allocations through the departments that they fall. So, Madam Speaker, if we looked through this, if we had time, and I think this is exactly what the Budget and Appropriation Committee needs to look at, the issue of cleaning duplications and the issue of costing and marrying together the monies that were supposed to be going to the parastatals that are being scrapped, then if you put them together, Madam Speaker, I believe we are able to get the 400 billion that we are looking for by cutting some of these areas in terms of the budgets that were necessary. The other thing is the whole issue of pilferage. If we are able to get to close all avenues of pilferage, all avenues where we are getting issues of corruption, particularly today the President has pronounced himself to the issue of procurement. I think if we closed all these avenues, Madam Speaker, I believe and I strongly believe that we are able to get the 400 billion shillings that are making us get to this arrangement where there's no money for development, Madam Speaker. Thank you very much.
Member for Manyata, Honorable John Gitonga, are you on this one? If not, I'll give to member for Sirisia. If not there, I'll give the member for Tetu. Honorable Geoffrey Mwangi.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for the opportunity to contribute and support this supplementary budget. Madam Speaker, we are in a very, very interesting time as a country, because for the first time, matters economy, matters governance are taking center stage in this country, something that we have not had in a long, long time. And it is good that we are relooking at our expenditure. It is good that we are relooking at how we raise funds. It is good that we are looking at how we finance the governance of this country. Madam Speaker, I would like to start by calling out our Treasury. Because, Madam Speaker, partly some of the problems that we have found ourselves in may have been the lack of thoroughness that we have exhibited in how we have prepared the different financial documents, be they budget, or be there appropriation. And Madam Speaker, it is important, without preempting debate on the individuals who have been selected to take charge of Treasury, to say that it is important that we get the best brains at Treasury. So that some of the challenges that we have gone on with the documents that have been rejected by the public and have put us in the spot as members of this House, at least we can be able to perform much, much better in future in terms of our budget and appropriations preparation. Madam Speaker, having said that, even as we try to exercise different austerity measures, even as we try to juggle with the minimal resources that we have and move them around to be able to satisfy the different needs in our country, it is important, Madam Speaker, that we continue and maybe even up the ante on the war on corruption and the war on wastage. Because, Madam Speaker, sometimes we talk about austerity. Then we realize the only austerity we achieved is by cutting in, important programs or reducing funding to important programs. But the money that gets lost through wastage, the money that gets lost through corruption remains the same. And as some of the people who have said here, we not only need to look at the national government, but we also need to look further down into the county government. Because if we do not win the war on corruption, we will continue talking about austerity. We will continue talking about not raising enough resources for a long, long time, without achieving whatever, any meaning of progress. Madam Speaker, it is important that we also create a lean government, a government that is small enough to meet the needs of the people, but also big enough to execute the mandate that it has been given. I personally believe, Madam Speaker, that the government has no business being in business. And that is why when the president calls out and says that there are some parastatals who would like merged or who would like wound up, that is something that I support. In this country, Madam Speaker, we have over 350 plus parastatals. Some of them have duplicated functions. Others can barely even survive without getting the annual budgetary support that they get from Treasury. Madam Speaker, we have to say what is important. What is the work of a government? It is to provide education. It is to provide things like health services. It is to provide things like security and the rest. When the government is in the business of, milling machines, the government is in the business of, milling cotton and things like that, those are things that can be best done, and they've done even better by the private sector. And Madam Speaker, if you look at this country, you can tell me any service that is offered by the government, especially those parastatals, which does not have a problem. When it comes to power, we have issues of reliability, we have issues of adequacy, and we have very many other issues. Where the services offered by the private sector, in a lot of instances, move so much better and are even cheaper. So it is time that we started looking at what is the core mandate of the government and ensure that only those functions are supported. But even as we work on this budget, and to support my chairman of the ICT committee, we must look into the future. We have continued putting a lot of money in the traditional brick and mortar economy, and we have forgotten to be futuristic. If you go to the United Arab Emirates, they have a minister for AI. They are thinking about futuristic things of where the world is going. We still have, and rightly so, an obsession with roads, an obsession with water, and those are all good things. But as we fix the past, we must also continue talking about the future. How much money are we allocating in research? How much money are we allocating in AI? How are we helping to build a futuristic government even as we take care of the past? So, Madam Speaker, I rise to support the supplementary budget, but I request that the chairman of the budget committee and his people at Treasury continue to do a budget that is purposeful, that is helpful for this country going forward. I rise to support, Madam Speaker, with those comments. Thank you.
Chair at National Administration, Honorable Tongoyo.
Thank you so much, Madam Speaker, for giving me an opportunity also to add my voice into this very important debate. Madam Speaker, from the very onset, I want really to appreciate and commend the Budget Committee led by their very able chair for burning the midnight oil to have this report ready. In fact, Madam Speaker, about last night, I was trying to call the chair, and he told me he went to bed around 4 a.m. And at the same breath, Madam Speaker, also want to commend all chairs, departmental chairs, who actually also participated in making this possible. Madam Speaker, it is good to appreciate that we are doing this supplementary budget during a very hard moment, because it was actually primarily cuts resulting or occasioned by the stepping down or suspension of the Finance Bill 2024, which has really caused a lot of cuts across the all sectors, which we have got no option. We had just to accept as it is. But having said this, Madam Speaker, I want really to appreciate that the Budget Committee had really tried to save and preserve the very critical and important program that are so beneficial to Kenyans. And just to mention a few, Madam Speaker, under the supplementary budget, there's still provision of money to absorb our GSS, which is a very positive step forward. We know majority of our youth are having a problem of unemployment, and observing the GSS will actually be a promise that the Kenya Kwanza government will be fulfilling. Madam Speaker, in the same budget, there is an increment for our police officers and the prisons, warders, and it's actually across all the security sector. It is actually, Madam Speaker, you remember, we all have to appreciate the Maraga Task Force report recommended a 40% increase of salaries to our police officers. And even the President has committed so, and in this budget, the same money has been provided, a tune of 3.5 billion has been provided to enable our police officers get their salary increment starting this month, as promised by the President. Madam Speaker, and I know we are still going to look at other sectors, like, of course, their welfare, the housing program, so that our police officers' welfare is going to be better. Madam Speaker, the issue like milk coolers is a very important sector, especially actually from the pastoralist community where we come from. Normally we say the cow belongs to the man, but milk belongs to the mothers. And the provision of milk coolers in the budget is a very critical component that is going to ensure that the livelihood of our farmers and our mothers is going to be uplifted. Madam Speaker, it's also important that, of course, the issue of CDF has been enhanced to enable these members, to enhance their bursaries, to ensure that no kids in Kenya get their bursaries. Madam Speaker, I want to speak on the issue of the lease vehicle. In the same budget, Madam Speaker, there is a provision of slightly less than 10 billion money that is going to enable us to able to re-embark into the program of the lease vehicle, to enable our security agents, our Ngawa officers, to enable to get the very important kits of tools of service so that they can able to give service to Kenyans more effectively and efficiently. And especially even to mention those who are undertaking security operation in the North Rift and in northern part of Kenya. Madam Speaker, in the same budget, we noted, of course, that there is the money for the public participation has been ring-fenced and protected so that the members who crisscross the entire country, taking the views of Kenyans, will be able to have this project provided to give the needed services. But having said this, Madam Speaker, and I hope the chair budget is listening to this, in the police sector, we had anticipated to have a lot of raft of reform and to enable our police officers to perform their duties and provide the tool of service. But in the development...
Chair budget, that Kamukunji has gone on too long. Honorable Tongo is addressing a matter to you so that you can be able to respond, especially the chairs of departmental committees.
Yeah, thank you so much, Madam Speaker. Chair, budget, I was mentioning that having appreciated a lot of the development and good things that has been considered in the policing sector, where we are anticipated to do a lot of reform to enable our security agents perform their duty more effectively, the money for the modernization is lacking. It has got a zero budget. In fact, Madam Speaker and the Chair budget, it's good to note this, even the money to do the crowd management, you know, the tear gas, the protective gears, is zero in this budget. I will kindly plead to the Chair, when we go to the appropriation or even actually the supply, we, in this House, we look for some money to enable our police officers get the tear gas, the protective gears, to manage, of course, the crowd for crowd management. And kindly, yes, and cyber security, so, as well said by my very able Chair, ICT. And I don't want to preempt, but I know the Chair budget is very concerned, equally concerned about this component, this program that was not really considered. Also, and I kindly, Chair ICT, I want also the Chair to listen to this. Madam Speaker, we had a program, a very good program, Madam Speaker, on restocking program, especially among the pastoralist community, those affected by the cattle rustling, which initially we had about 1 billion or so, I think 2 or so, which has been removed. I will kindly call this House and of course the Chair budget and his committee to look around where, when we get to that stage, whether we can get some small money to enable the pastoralist community restock there, because that is their source of livelihood, Madam Speaker. So Chair, kindly, and I don't know, I don't want to preempt, but we have got the issue of equalization is not bad. If Chair, kindly, I want Chair to listen to this. The issue of restocking is very important to pastoralist communities. And I can see even my colleague, Peter Locha, is agreeing with this. The farmers, the pastoralists lost a lot of head of cattle during the drought. Even others did through this issue of cattle rustling. I will beseech and call upon the Chair budget and this House to look around where they can get some 2 billion or so that we can be able to have money to take back to the restocking program. And having said this, we can, Madam Speaker, this House is a budget-making House. And I'm sure we can still be able to get some money to to put some money into that program. Having said this, I want to support this, and I'm really very happy and still commend all of us, chairs, who participated to make this possible. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Very well, Member for Wajir, Honorable Fatuma.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I would like to make my contribution on this budget, the supplementary estimate for the financial year 2024-25. But before I do my contribution, Madam Speaker, and I want to get your attention, Madam Speaker, can I get your attention, Madam Speaker? I want to get your attention, Madam Speaker. Yes, I want your attention, Madam Speaker. I said before I do my contribution, I want to express my disappointment, to be honest. I came here very early in the morning, and my card was in the computer. And not just me, some of the new members in this parliament have been wanting to speak from yesterday. But I don't understand what happens in this clerk office that we are not given a chance to say something. And for once, I want to talk to the leadership of this House. Mr. Ichungwa, if you can hear me, I'll be more than glad if you hear me, Mr. Ichungwa, that as the members, the first-timers, we also want to speak. Mr. Ichungwa, I was saying, I want to talk to the leadership of this House. The new members of this House, they come here very early. They are not given a chance to say something. And I really don't understand what is going on in the clerk's office and the speaker. I say that because I was number 2 when I came here early in the morning. Let me just finish. I was number 2, and to date, we are just seeing people raising their hand, giving, to talk. Let us just know. If you don't want us to speak, let us know. Gen Zs have really shown us the way.
Honorable Fatuma.
Yes.
Order. Because you have come to the clerk's table, you have come to me, and there was a directive by the substantial speaker that every time, please take your seat, every time an order is called, the screen is cleared. Because what we see every day is what you have seen me call for members by following each other, and they're not in the house. People put a card and disappear. People put a card on an issue, yet they don't want to speak to it. So we are implementing that every time a new order is called, and you can also not put a card in the morning to speak in the afternoon. You'll understand, and we have tried to explain to you. So I hope that is clear enough as guidance not only to you, but to the House.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Well noted, but I was, again, the first person to enter this House this afternoon because I really wanted to be heard. And I still say I'm disappointed by the leadership.
You're on the floor, Honorable Fatuma. Please.
So having said
heard.
that, Madam Speaker, I'll move to what I wanted, my contribution, Madam Speaker. First, I would like to thank the committee for agreeing with the Gen Zs for taking a budget cut. Indeed, I want to appreciate the Gen Zs for forcing not just the members of Parliament, but Kenyans in large, for accepting to live within their means. And having said that, Madam Speaker, there are institutions that gained. I want to applaud the committee for looking at the doctors, the internship doctors, the JSS teachers, and the feeding programs so that our children can be fed. Madam Speaker, the elephant in the room, Madam Speaker, still, we need to go further and cut our codes according to our size. There are ministries that are given monies that there's duplication of roles, Madam Speaker. If I may highlight a bit, the Office of the Deputy President, there is money that is given for alcohol and for alcohol use. We also have NACADA. Someone will ask, why will we give Office of the Deputy President such a huge money when we have NACADA who can also fight against drug abuse? And it's something food for thought. We need to discuss that so that we can also cut our budget and see, because we are talking of lean budget, those are areas we need to look at. Madam Speaker, I have heard my sister, Mudhoni, saying they were given 2 billion for the coffee. And that has actually made me think, for those of us who come from the northern part of this country, whether we will ever see a day we'll get 2 billion for the restocking of our livestock, or even those who fish, or those who do mira, and many others. So it's something for our budget chair to see so that even us, our livelihood can be improved. Lastly, Madam Speaker, I want to discuss on the ministry.